You're listening to Double Axe Handle Smash Podcast with your hosts, two guys you've never heard of. And now, your host, Johnny O. Hey everybody, welcome to Double Axe Handle Smash Podcast. It's been a long time coming. I haven't done an episode or intro in a long time. I have my good friend Mario here, El Tiburon from the Retro Wave.
What's going on, Johnny O? Nice to talk to you again.
Yeah, haven't talked to you in a long time. This is going to be the Tito Santana episode. So we basically, when Metal Ed was around, we did this interview with Tito Santana, and you were our special guest host. We did this whole episode with Tito. At first, we had some audio issues, and I hopefully fixed those. And what do you remember about Tito Santana in this interview?
Man, I just remember feeling super nervous, super excited. As you know, I think I told you beforehand, like he's one of my idols pretty much growing up. Being a Mexican-American, Tito Santana was one of the wrestlers I looked up to growing up, right? So when you invited me on the podcast to join you in Metal Ed, the late great Metal Ed, I was nervous but super excited, like super honored too that you asked me to join you guys, because you guys, you and Metal Ed had like really great chemistry just on your own.
Yeah, and actually, as far as the podcast goes, we still, we recorded an interview with Tony Atlas, and we recorded an interview with the franchise Shane Douglas. Metal Ed passed away, and we have not been able to locate any of those files. We went into the house, and we went into the files. His lovely wife helped us, and we just can't find it. So I don't know if they're lost forever or they'll turn up, but I don't know the status of the show yet. I said this before in the last podcast where I uploaded the part 2 of Marty Jannetty episode, and it was very rough because I did it myself and I didn't have help, and I didn't even have the theme song. So I really would like to thank you, El Tiburon, to helping me put this together, because I don't have the technological skills to do this. And if I do sound any weird at all, it's because I'm on a telephone, not in a regular recording studio. So I want to thank you very much for helping me do this.
You got it, man. You got it anytime.
Yeah. I'm not really sure, though, the status of the future of our show. The episodes right now, I'm paying my podcast hosters money every month to just keep the episodes up there, the minimum amount. So I just don't know what to do yet. I'm looking for a new co-host. I know you said you're too busy to do it, but I am looking for somebody to help me interview wrestlers from, the 80s and 90s and early 2000s and continue the show, but they also have to have good computer skills and editing skills and stuff like that. So that's what I'm looking for. And they can go to my Twitter at DAH Smash on Twitter. Send me a private message or something. Send me something if you are interested. I would preferably like to have a big wrestling fan step in, and somebody that knows their computer stuff. But yeah. So anyway, Tito Santana. It was such a great episode. I loved Tito. Was such a great guy, so kind, and he actually, after the interview, he was basically telling us how much he enjoyed doing it, and said we were so good and professional and stuff like that with him, he introduced us and gave me Tony Atlas's number, and Coco Bewares. I called Tony Atlas. He answered, talked to him, did the interview, called Coco Beware. He never responded at all. So, and I called a couple times, but anyway, you want to introduce our episode here?
So up next, we got one of my childhood idols, Tito Santana, coming up. Arriba!
Arriba.
Welcome to Double Axe Handle Smash Podcast. We have a very special guest, Mr. Tito Santana.
Arriba.
Arriba. I've been really looking forward to doing this with you guys. Took us a little while to get it going because I'm not very computer literate, but here we go.
All right. We want to start off. Usually interviews, I always notice they save this question till the last, and we want to start the interview with this. What do you think is your greatest career accomplishment?
My greatest career accomplishment, oh God, I would say that taking part on WrestleMania 3 in front of 93,000 people, that was pretty awesome.
What would you say, like, how did it feel, like being out there in front of that crowd?
Well, it was an awesome, unbelievable feeling. We were there all day preparing interviews and doing all kinds of things in the arena. And we were able to go up to the very top and look down at the ring and to see how small the ring was. And I just couldn't understand why anybody would want to come and be part of that. Because back then you didn't have the monitors where they could see, close-ups like they do now. Yeah. So it was just amazing seeing from the fan point of view what they would be looking at.
Right. Wow. Yep.
Tito, this is Mario. I'm a huge fan of yours since I'm a Mexican American, so I've been a huge fan of yours since I was a little kid. You're one of my heroes. I'm reading your book right here, Tito Santana, Don't Call Me Chico. I'm about halfway through it. I had a question because I see on here you played high school football, you played collegiate football, you played with a lot of guys that turned out to be pro wrestlers. I wanted to know, in your opinion, who would you consider the best football player out of the pro wrestlers?
Well, there were so many. Stan Hansen played for the Baltimore Colts. He was there a couple of seasons. I think Bobby Duncan played professional football also. A lot of the other ones just played wrestling. So it's hard to tell who. I think I would have to say I was the best football player that made it into professional wrestling.
You got to get yourself over. So speaking of getting yourself over, what was the experience like working for Vince McMahon? Was there, I'm sure there was some good and some bad. You want to kind of share that experience?
Well, Vince McMahon, I started working for the father first, and the father was a really up and up guy, upfront guy. He whatever he would tell you, he would always follow through, and that was something that was not the same with the present Vince McMahon. He made me a bunch of promises that he didn't follow through with, and I know he made a lot of other wrestlers promises that he didn't follow through. But the guy was a businessman. He I guess he did what he thought was right for his company.
Were you ever in the AWA before WWE? WWF?
Yeah, I wrestled for Vern Gagne. I was there for a little over 2 years. I got to team up with Rick Martel then, and I teamed up with Dino Bravo, and we went up against the High Flyers. The AWA was a first class organization. I mean, Vern Gagne. I got there, and then Hulk Hogan got there a few months later, just right before he taped the movie with Sylvester Stallone. Mm-hmm. And that's what really made Hulk the big star, you know. He went and filmed the movie, then he came back, and Vern kept pushing the clips about the movie on his television. They brought Hulk in as a heel in the AWA, and the people just kept cheering him, and they would put him up against two guys, and he'd beat the heck out of the guys, and the people still would keep on cheering him. And finally, Johnny Valiant was managing Hulk. Finally, they sent Johnny Valiant home, and they turned Hulk babyface, you know, because the people just he was an impressive looking guy, and the people just weren't buying him as a heel. You know, they just kept cheering for him.
So when you were in AWA and you were teaming with Rick Martel, later years you were Strike Force. Did you have a team name in AWA?
No, we just Tito Santana and Rick Martel, and we went up against the High Flyers. We got over as a team in the AWA. The High Flyers, you know, Greg was the son of Vern Gagne, and you know there was no way that we were gonna. We had a pretty good feud with those guys. I mean, we had all kinds of gimmick matches. We had hour Broadways, you know, that lasted a whole hour all over the country. And the people, you know, a lot of people knock Greg and because he's a real small guy, skinny guy. But, you know, as far as having knowledge in the ring, the guy was a heck of a worker. And, you know, the people bought his work. And we had some fantastic matches. And I think in reality the people kind of wanted to see us take the belts away from them, but that never happened.
Was there, Tito? Was there a little bit of nepotism? You think? Because he was Greg Gagne was the son, right, of Vern.
Yeah, I don't know that it was nepotism. You know, I think the fans just enjoyed the contest because it was a baby face match. You know, they were baby faces and we were baby faces, and it's just they admired the work. I mean, we were four talented guys there. You know, one more talented than the other, and we were not out there to make anybody look bad. We were out there to get the match over, and the fans, no matter how much time the match lasted, the fans were really into it. You know, but I know by the reaction that they wanted Rick Martel and myself to beat him, you know. But you know, if I was the owner of a company and my son was wrestling, you know, that's who I was going to push, you know. And Greg was small, but you know, people believed his work, and he was a great worker. And Jim Brunzell, teaming up with him, you know, Jim Brunzell was. He threw one of the best drop kicks in the business, you know, up until now, and you know they were over with the AWA fans.
Did you and Rick Martel get along really well?
Yeah,
we traveled together too.
We traveled together. We shared rooms together. We you know, we rented a car together. We got along. You know. Neither one of us were partying like it was out of control. You know, we got our rest. We weren't doing things that we weren't supposed to be doing, and you know, we looked after each other's health. We were working out, you know, dieting. He helped me a lot with my diet, you know, because I love to eat French fries and burgers and crap like that, and you know, I felt guilty being around him. So I try to keep a good diet with him.
So what was that like though? Your diet, like back then when you're, you know, working to be on TV and everything, what was your diet like? I mean, besides the French fries.
Of course, we were having we were traveling a lot, and we were getting our at least 3 meals. The last one wouldn't come in till really late, but we'd get up before we got our first workout. We would eat a lot of egg whites, and stayed away from the potatoes for a long time. Very seldom ate any carbs like pancakes or stuff like that. But like maybe once a week we'd indulge and ate whatever we wanted to. We ate a lot of, back then we weren't really aware of the sugar in the pasta. So we thought pasta was good for us, and we ate pasta with chicken, grilled chicken quite a bit, and stayed away from the breads. And the same thing at night. We were eating a lot of pasta and chicken, and years later we found out that pasta was turning into sugar, and the only reason we weren't getting fat is because we were working 7 days a week. Yeah. And then working out in the gym. We'd work out in the gym hard too. So we were burning as much, so I guess maybe we needed the calories, the carbs.
As a diabetic, I can attest that pasta is not very good for the sugar.
I feel these questions that were like the food thing is no one really asks too much in wrestling interviews anymore about the what they eat and stuff like that. So I just find it interesting to find out like what kind of stuff that you guys. I mean, you must have had a lot of steak too, huh?
We ate a lot of steak, and we ate believe it or not, we ate baked potatoes without any butter, which was not. Oh. It didn't taste that good, but we ate a lot of protein. There's always some kind of protein involved, and we didn't eat the desserts like I eat now.
Who has the best fries, McDonald's, Burger King, or Wendy's?
I think McDonald's has the best fries. I think Burger King has the best burgers.
Yeah.
And Wendy's doesn't have the best anything.
But I like Wendy's too. I like Wendy's chicken. They have a chicken sandwich, spicy chicken sandwich that I love.
That's a good one.
Well, actually, Wendy's ice cream machine always seems to work. So, how did your relationship with Rick change once the split happened, or were you guys still close?
No, we were still close. We didn't travel together anymore when we were Strike Force, but professional wrestling is a fraternity. We competed against each other, and then when we split up, he was having feuds with Jake the Snake Roberts, with different guys, and I went in a different direction. So. That's when I started training to become a matador, and it was we just turned the page. He went one way and I went another way.
So how was that? I mean, we have a question before that, but it seemed like your career after you broke it off with Rick Martel, and you guys never really had a big blow off like a WrestleMania or a pay-per-view blow off. How'd you feel about not having a big blow off? I mean,
well, to me, I thought the whole thing was a big swerve, behind the scene, which they never smartened me up to what was going on. We were teamed up. We go to a pay-per-view, come into the locker room, and they bring us into the room with the Demolition, and find out that Rick has to take some time off because supposedly a family member was ill and he wanted to be with a family member. And I said, Rick, we're going to be making so much money, hire a full-time nurse. He says, no, I want to be with my wife. And I said, okay, I understand, if family comes first. I don't know what happened. I hear rumors. I heard that he got into real estate, was buying buildings. All of a sudden, he comes back. I don't know if you guys remember, Rick Martel was not a great interviewer. He wasn't good on the mic. But all of a sudden, because when he was coming back, Vince told me that he was coming back, and that we were going to do the split. And I said, Vince, can I be the heel? I wanted to be the heel. And he said, no, you're going to stay as a baby face. I got a bunch of stuff I can do with you as a baby face. Rick's going to be the heel. Well, unbeknown to me, all of a sudden he comes in with the model gimmick. They just didn't happen overnight.
Right.
This had to be in the plan for quite a while for him to. I mean, he came in. He must have been going to classes, or I don't know what took place, but all of a sudden he's doing a pretty good model interview, and it sounded pretty good. He went from not doing an interview to he did a heck of a job with that model gimmick. Yeah. So I feel that I was kept in the dark, during this whole thing, and to me it cost me a lot of money, but I up until today I still have no hard feelings towards Rick, because Vince is the one that makes all those decisions.
Mm-hmm. Right. So before we go into the your El Matador gimmick, what are your experiences? You said you mentioned a little bit about you weren't much of a partier or whatever. What was your experience with steroids or just alcohol and everything?
Well, you saw my body. I never looked like Hulk Hogan. I never looked like the Ultimate Warrior. Some of those guys. I never did steroids. I didn't get into the steroids. I was never much of a drinker. I came from migrant workers. We were migrant workers, poor. Mm-hmm. So I just couldn't see. We were working like dogs. I just couldn't see how these guys were blowing so much money, and I don't want to get into anybody who was doing this or who was doing that. I just couldn't see how guys had such little value to the dollar that they were earning for as hard as we were working. Because, working in the fields, $1 an hour back then when I was a kid, I remember that. So every dollar counted, and I didn't want to blow the money I was making on drugs. I wanted to, enhance the way of living for my family.
Right.
I wanted to touch on that too. When Shawn Michaels, when Shawn Michaels inducted you into the Hall of Fame, he kind of brought that up about you. Like you were there, you did your job, you were a professional, and then you would go back home to your family. And he said he admired that about you. So I think that's kind of the rap on you. There's no skeletons in your closet, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys would always mention that to me, and I didn't go around and hang out in the bars with the guys, and I just wasn't doing that.
That's something to truly be proud of. That's great.
Yeah. I'm proud of that.
And I was gonna follow up on that. Why? Because you and your book, you talk about being really close with Paul Orndorff, couple of other guys. Why did you choose Shawn Michaels specifically to induct you into the Hall of Fame?
I didn't choose Shawn. Vince makes all those decisions.
Oh, okay.
I was totally shocked that it was Shawn that was going to be doing the induction, and I had no idea that him and Razor Ramon and those guys would travel together and talk about they wanted the Tito thing. Because I remember when Shawn and Marty came to the territory, and they would ask me, because they were there for a long time before Vince did anything with either one of them, as a tech team. And I said, look, guys, I've been here because me and Hulk Hogan were in the WWE or WWF longer than anybody else. So we saw a lot of people come and go, but I knew how things worked. And I told Shawn and Marty, we were traveling in the planes sitting close to each other. And I said, there's a reason why you still are here. I said, Vince hasn't decided what he's going to do with you guys yet. but there's a reason why you're still here. You know, he's got a plan for you guys, but he's going to do it when it's right. And, you know, they were really impressed. I mean, they were a great tag team also. I think they could have got a lot more, but, you know, I don't know. You know, Pat Patterson had a lot to do with splitting them up. And, you know, I don't know who's the one that decided, you know, because there were so many great workers. Whoever they chose could carry the load, you know, because it was the way they pushed you on television, whether you were going to get over or not. You know, I when I stopped wrestling and I started doing the commentating, and I would go to the meetings where they set up the TV and stuff. I over the years I would hear the guys talk about, I got over, I sold this place out, I sold that place out. And then when I see where Vince is telling all the commentators exactly what to say, where to place the camera, exactly what to do, I realized I'm sitting there listening and watching all this, and I said to myself, I had very little to do with getting over. It was, you know, Vince McMahon and television that got us over. You know, it's not me. You know, it was Vince McMahon that was making the machine work.
Right. So when they repackaged you as El Matador, was that something that you came up with, or was that something that Vince decided to do with you?
No, I went in there to talk to Vince several times. You know, I was ready to quit, you know, because I felt that I was over with the fans pretty big as Tito Santana. Mm-hmm. And then the last straw, you know, they got rid of Hulk. They got rid of a bunch of the. I heard that Vince, Linda McMahon says, you know, we need to get rid of the dinosaurs. You know, I was part of the dinosaur group. And you know, up until now, they've realized they need the dinosaurs to get over, you know, because they're still over probably as much or better than some of the guys that they had throughout the years. So I went in there and I was ready to give Vince my notice, and he says, "No, I got one more thing for you." He said, "Would you be interested in doing El Matador?" And I said, "I'll do whatever you're going to do if you're going to push me." And he explained to me what I was going to do, and I said, "Okay, let's do it." You know, he sent me to Mexico. I trained to be a bullfighter, and I was in Mexico. He rented the whole arena, and I was there for a bullfight. I never met a big bull. I did it with a small bull, but I went through all the steps to be a matador. You know, to learn the gimmick about a matador.
Did you feel that like you were ever in danger when you were training to be a bullfighter?
No. I was pretty agile. You know, I could move around. I could get out of the way. You know, the little bull.
Who produced those vignettes? Was it Bruce Pritchard?
No, I don't think Bruce was there. I don't know. I don't know who was in charge, but I know that Vince spent a lot of money. One of the guys that was there told me that he spent over $500,000 for the production, and I said, "Well, if he's spending this kind of money, I'm sure he's going to give me a push." Yeah. So, you know, I was supposed to come out of that when I came back as a matador with a big feud with the $1 Million Man, and they had created the vignettes from myself and from the $1 Million Man also, and all of a sudden before I started, it all disappeared.
Huh.
So
were
another screw job.
Were the vignettes filmed in Mexico?
Yeah, everything was filmed in Mexico.
And can you clarify something for me, Tito? When I went to Mexico back in 1998, and I saw a sign that said Toluca, Mexico this way. And I asked my mom, where's Tocula? And my mom said, there is no Tocula, but you were hailed. Howard Finkel would announce you from Tocula, Mexico, Tito Santana. Where is Tocula, Mexico?
I don't know. When I came to New York, and I became Tito Santana, it was in 1979. I was Merced Solis working in Amarillo territory for Blackjack Mulligan and God, what was his name? Anyway, they bought the territory from the Funk Brothers, and Vince McMahon Sr. told me, I want you to think of a catchy name. Well, I like Santana. So when I came back, and he says, I want you to think of a town in Mexico. So I just opened the map, and I saw Toluca. So I said, okay, I'm going to be from Toluca, and I like the name Santana. And when my very first match in New York, I went in the ring, and it was not Tito, it was Tino, Tino Santana. Huh. And when I came through the curtains, Vince Sr. and Vince Jr. were waiting for me, and they said, because they used to record the matches back then, and then they would do voiceovers. He said, from now on, you're going to be Tito Santana. And I said, I don't care what you call me. I'm just happy that you're giving me a break. So I started getting introduced by Howard Finkel, and he kept saying Tocula, and I would whisper on it with him, and I said, Howard, it's Toluca. And we did it for several times, and I said, okay, the hell with it. It's going to be Tocula. So a lot of people from Mexico, especially in California, would come up to me and they say, Where's Tocula?
I was one of those people. I was one of those kids wondering, where is that?
Yeah. That's great. So it seemed like they had a gimmick for everybody. Everyone had a job back then. It was basically they had a repo man, they had a prison guard, they had a convict, they had a Native American. It seemed like everybody had to have it. They even had a plumber later on, TL Hopper. Do you think it seemed like it was kind of like getting like more kiddish, like circusy? And did you ever feel that way? Because it also seemed like they tried to make you more of an enhancement talent later in your career. It seemed like they were pushing you to just putting over other people.
Well, that's why I talked to Vince. I wanted to quit several times, and Vince says, look, you've been with me for a long time. He says, and he showed me like a scale, and he went to the top, and then he went to the bottom. He says, you never get below the middle. I use you and I bring you up to the top, then I bring you down to the middle, and use you to get guys over. Right. Because I was a good worker, and I knew how to get people over and still stay over with the fans. The way I fought back at the end and the way I fought during the match, it was always a screw job when I got beat. But if you're putting people over, you're not on top of the card and you're not making the money. So that's the bottom line. And I spent a lot of years on the road. At the end, I just wasn't going to be around. I saw the writing on the wall, so that's why I gave. I'm one of the few guys that gave Vince their notice. I had a meeting with Vince, and I told Vince that this is funny because it's what had happened, and I said, Vince, we came in from. The only guy that I knew in the dressing room was Sergeant Slaughter. I didn't have anybody to travel with anymore. And I decided that night, we were coming to Connecticut. We were doing our tapings in Connecticut, our interviews in Connecticut. I said, I'm going to go in. I'm going to tell Vince I'm quitting. I just had it. I had it with the BS, lies and stuff. And I went in and I said, Vince, can I talk to you? And he always talked to you. And I said, Vince, I think it's time for me to go. I said, and Vince says, I think you're right. So, we shook hands, and I said, I want to thank you for, God, I was there first 9 WrestleManias. I was there longer than anybody else. So I had a heck of a run. Other than Hulk Hogan, nobody stayed on top the whole time. Everybody went up and down. Or they got rid of you.
Now, just as a question for me, was WCW ever a option for you Was that something you were willing to go to?
No, when I left, I was done. You know, I was done with being on the road. I wanted to be home. They wanted to talk to me, and you know, I just told them no. I was done. You know, I just didn't want to be on the road anymore.
Understandable.
Well, we had some fan questions, and similar. This is one question that's similar to what he asked. Neil Cameron asks, did he ever regret not leaving the WWF around 1990 when it was clear that his run was over and trying his hand in WCW? You never thought about that in like 1990 before you retired, like way before?
Well, I don't know if you guys remember, 1990 is when I came back as a Matador. I was supposed to be getting a big push, and I was getting, you know, Pat Patterson kept telling me, we're going into Mexico, we're going into Argentina, we're going into all these countries in South America, and I'm beating everybody. I wrestled the Undertaker in Barcelona, Spain, and I go over the Undertaker. We were the main event in Barcelona, and the stadium was completely sold out. So we were going to be going into Spain, Central America, South America, Mexico. So I figured, well, you know, they got plans for me, you know, and I come to find out, Bruce Pritchard told me that I was talked about being, you know, the world champion. So if they would have stayed in Central America and South America, I think that's the way they were going to go. But I think they found out that the valuation of the peso was so low that it didn't make sense for them to go and, you know, make a lot less money. You know, you could have huge crowds, but the house, you know, the money brought in wasn't that much. And then instead, they end up going to Canada. Mm-hmm. And they went all over Canada, and you know, they decided to make Bret Hart the champion. And they had a big meeting. We're in Canada. We're doing a TV taping, and they come out, and Pat Patterson comes and tells me, Tito, it was between you and Bret, and they're going with Bret. Well, they dropped the Hispanic part of the money, and they went with Canada. But Ted DiBiase told me that Pat went up to him and says, Ted, it was between you and Bret. And there was a couple of other guys that Pat Patterson went and told him it was between you and Bret. So he told a few of us that it was between, you know, I didn't want to hear that it was between me and Bret. You know, don't tell me anything. It wasn't me, so it doesn't matter, you know.
Right.
Stop the BS, you know.
Well, that's kind of funny you answered that question, because one of the fan questions was from Cody Craig, and he asks you if it was true that if it was between you and Bret of who they were going to put the WWE title on, you know, and that you answered the question, so that was great.
Steve Johnson asks, were you ever offended by the racial comments like being called Chico Santana from Jesse Ventura and the Heenan family on commentary?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't know that Jesse was doing the commentating, and you know, we were always traveling. Like, I wasn't watching our TV shows, so I didn't hear. I wasn't hearing Jesse, but I was getting to the arenas, and even when I was involved, and me and Greg Valentine had the longest feud in the history of the WWF, and we were selling out arenas without even Hulk Hogan being on the card. I mean, our feud was over big time. And, you know, I'd hear the fans, they would be lined up, you know, hollering at me, Chico. And I wouldn't say anything to them, but they would piss me off, you know, but I wouldn't say nothing. And then one day I was, because we wake up in the morning on the hotel sometimes, and I saw, finally I saw one of our shows, and I hear Jesse calling me Chico. And then I realized that's where Chico comes from. And, you know, and Jesse and I were good friends, and Jesse was over so big that by him degrading me as a heel, he was in reality helping me get over, you know. So, you know, then I understand. I understood, you know, where Chico came from.
I saw in the book that you even told Bobby Heenan when he took over to, hey, throw in some commentary too about my about the burritos and all that. That you told him.
Yeah, yeah. Bobby Heenan was the same way. Bobby Heenan was great. He used to say, "Yeah, Tito used to live in his '56 Chevy with his family. That was their home." And I saw him selling tacos in the corner in Mexico. Bobby was also great. And those guys were heels, and they were helping me get over by degrading me.
You think that you could get away with that nowadays?
No, there's no way you could get away with it.
No, I was about to ask the same thing. Okay, so Alberto Torres asked, did it ever become an issue that you were booked to lose every WrestleMania match after winning the first one?
Well, I didn't lose I didn't lose in WrestleMania 3. I didn't lose in WrestleMania 9. I was surprised that it was my last WrestleMania, and I went over Papa Chango, even though it was just a dark match. But whenever they brought some guys, I mean, I worked against, oh God, who did I wrestle in WrestleMania 7?
Wrestled the Barbarian, I think. Didn't
I
you?
wrestled the
no, the
Barbarian.
Mountie. You wrestled the Mountie.
I think the Barbarian in one of the WrestleManias and the Warlord, and these guys were not very good workers, so they put them with me so I could teach them how to work. And I took a lot of pride, like the Warlord. He was like a robot, and he didn't know anything. So I could wrestle with small guys or big guys, and I would call the match for the Warlord, and I would call the spots, and then I would have him call him back to me so he could get used to calling the match, because he was scared to death to talk in the ring, and there's an art for you to be able to talk in the ring without people seeing you talk. So they put him, I was with him for probably about 6 months, and when I got done, he became a pretty good worker. The Barbarian, the same thing. I helped the Barbarian pretty much. I mean, they didn't understand the psychology of the match. Like one time I was working with the Barbarian, and every time I see him now, he laughs because he grabbed a hold on me, and I reversed the hold, and I told the Barbarian, I said, "Barbarian, grab the rope." And he says to me, "Oh no, Tito," because Barbarian was built like a real stud, right? And he was a killer. He says, "That's chicken." So I said, "Man, this guy doesn't have a clue." So we went in the locker room. I said, "Barbarian, that's the whole point. You're a monster of a guy. You look like you can kill me, but for you to use the rope to save yourself, that's a coward. That's the whole point. That's what good heels do." And finally he saw it. And when I explained it to him in the locker room, and every time I see him, he always remembers and laughs about that. And he ended up, Barbarian turned out to be one heck of a worker also.
Oh, Bob Kaplan asks, do you get a lot of questions regarding your career from your students? He's referring to that as because Tito is a school teacher. Just for the fans who don't know.
I've been teaching this is my 25th year, as a matter of fact. And students want to talk about wrestling, but I tell them whenever, and we do have downtime in my class sometimes.
Right.
I let them put a match on YouTube. We watch matches, and I answer questions. But I'm not there to teach them about wrestling. Everybody. I live in a small town. I'm the only celebrity in town, so everybody knows who I am. So the parents and the grandparents were my fans when they were young. So the kids, even though they weren't even in the plan yet, they know who I am because of their parents.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to be in my class.
What's the most common thing they ask you?
Well, from a 7th grader to an 8th grader, they want to know if wrestling is fake.
Right. Yeah.
That's a common.
And what's your answer? What do you tell them?
I don't. I just tell them I don't want to talk about it.
Oh,
You're still protecting the kayfabe.
Well, it would take you a long time to explain to them,
Right.
the business. It's just not worth it.
Right.
Because no matter what I say, you're not going to convince them.
Right. Brian, I am not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, but
Shoat.
Brian Showoff.
Oh, that's an F.
Brian Showoff asks, reflect on your tag team championship years with Ivan Putski.
Well, I came to New York in 1979. Me and Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, and I, we were, and Tully Blanchard, we were on the same football team at West Texas State. And we were both wrestling in Texas, and we both came to New York at the same time. The $1 Million Man was already coming in as an Intercontinental Champion. He was the first Intercontinental Champion. And I just came in as, because they knew that Andre the Giant got a tape from Texas and brought it to Vince Sr., and Vince saw me work, and he asked me to come over with DiBiase. They didn't make me any promises or anything, but I was just happy to be coming over. So what was the question again? I lost my train of thought.
To reflect on your championship years with Ivan Putski.
Okay, so they started pushing me, and before you know it, all of a sudden I hear they're going to team you up with Ivan Putski. Like Tito Santana I was just getting started as Tito Santana. I've been in the business 2.5 years, but Tito Santana was a completely new character. And they said, you guys are going to go over the Valiants. And I just couldn't believe that all of a sudden I came into New York, and all of a sudden I'm going to be the World Tag Team Champion in the WWF, which when we won the belts, I was catapulted to the top, overnight. I went from being nobody to a champion, because Ivan Putski, I don't know if you guys were old enough to remember Ivan Putski's career. I mean, that guy was over like $1 million. And
Polish power.
Yeah. I mean, so he elevated me, and a lot of guys were jealous of him. And Ivan told me that Vince Sr. asked him if he would be willing to do that. A lot of guys were jealous of me because, I went up so fast. They figured I didn't, pay my dues. Because, years ago, it was a little tougher getting over with, the old timers, man. They'd make you earn, they'd eat you up if you weren't ready, especially on TV matches.
Did you learn a lot from Ivan?
Well, yeah, I learned that I was a small guy and I had to do the selling and give him a hot tag, and he'd go in there and crush the guys because he was over so strong. But I was a good seller. Ivan couldn't sell, so I knew in order for us to get the match over, I had to be the one where they got the sympathy of, and I would sell for Ivan, and Ivan would, Ivan wouldn't always take the fall. Sometimes he would start the comeback and give it back to me. We ended up working pretty good together.
Oh, okay.
So Adam Turner asks, well, this is more like, he says ask, but he says, I would really like to know Tito's thoughts on being the first wrestler to pin The Undertaker back on the 5th of October, 1991, in what I believe was Barcelona. Very early, The Undertaker rarely lost, let alone get pinned, and the crowd were so behind you that they erupted when you scored the pin. So he wants to know whether or not you thought Undertaker was going to be the icon he became, and what were your memories of that moment?
Well, everybody knew that Undertaker was going to be the man. I mean, he was getting pushed. Nobody was getting anywhere near a pin. but that's when they were planning on giving me the world title. I wrestled the Undertaker. I believe it was in '92 when I wrestled the Undertaker in Barcelona. That's where they had the basketball games in the Olympics in 1980. It was a big arena. It was completely sold out. They made a big deal that they gave me the keys to Barcelona. I was in there, did a bunch of interviews. I came in early, I gained a lot of respect for the Undertaker because I was the first one to even pin him. And when they asked him to put me over, he didn't hesitate. That was the nature of our business, A lot of people put me over. So at the end of my career, when I was being asked to put other people over, what am I supposed to say? No, I'm not going to put anybody over. It took other guys to get me over. It was my turn to get guys over. But, I did think that I was on my way up. I kept hearing rumblings that I was going to get the belt. But nothing is for sure in our business. And it turned out to be that it didn't happen.
Tito, we love rib stories over here. And reading through your book, you had some pretty interesting ones with Mr. Fuji. I was wondering if you could share one or two of those stories.
Well, Mr. Fuji was a big ribber. I mean, he used to like to rib. If you got on his wrong side, but I do remember we were in Texas. I think flying into San Antonio. From one town to another in Texas, we were flying in. And I was, because we worked like dogs and we'd always get up early in the morning and catch the first flights to get to the next town. And we're getting out. I'm in the front part of the plane and we're getting off the plane. And I hear a guy coming off and he says, "I'm going to kill me a wrestler. I'm going to kill me a wrestler." I had no idea what he was talking about. Well, I think the stewardesses heard that too, and they alerted the security, and they followed the guy, got his bags. They had him open his bag, and he had a .357 Magnum in his check-in bag. And I found out that when the guy was messing with the wrestlers back there, he had just got out of prison and he was messing with the wrestlers. And I found out that Fuji went to the bathroom and pooped and put some of that poop in the back of his jacket while the guy was sleeping. Then I realized why the guy was so angry, and I realized why he was angry. But he was a funny guy. I mean, the ribs were pretty serious back then.
Yeah, you have another Fuji story, and then I'm going to ask you another from another wrestler that used to rib. But do you have another Mr. Fuji?
Well, yeah, we were in Montreal, and Jerry King Lawler just came in. Jerry King Lawler, when he came in, I wrestled him in Madison Square Garden, and supposedly he was a fantastic worker. He knew the business very well, and so he steps into the ring, and the fans started cheering Burger King because he had the king, Burger King, and Lawler wasn't acknowledging the fans, and finally I said, Lawler, I said, cover your ears, let the fans, know that it's bothering you. So he finally covered his ears, and that became the thing, Burger King, and he would cover his ears, and he'd make a big fuss out of it. But we were in Montreal, and Lawler came with a lot of heat because he was in Memphis, and small guy, and he ran the territory, and he beat a lot of really, really big guys. He put himself over, so he came with a lot of heat. And when he went to the ring, they brought his crown back again. Fuji went into the toilet and took a dump on his crown, and came back and found a pretty good load on his crown. And then Vince Vince had a meeting with us and told us, that couldn't be going on.
What did Jerry Lawler think of Mr. Fuji after that?
Well, he didn't know who it was.
Oh, he never knew?
Yeah,
I'm sure after.
Yeah, I'm sure afterwards he did.
All right. Do you have any rib stories of either Mr. Perfect or Owen Hart? Did they ever play any ribs on you or anything you know?
No, I think a lot of the guys respected me, and because I treated everybody with respect, and to my knowledge, I never got ribbed by anyone.
No padlocks on your luggage or anything.
No padlocks, no cutting your pants, nothing.
Yeah, it seemed like when people got their pants cut, everyone had pants like Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
Yeah.
So we do a segment called Rapid Fire Smash, which is kind of our little fun questions and stuff. But before that, I have one more question for you. I don't know if these guys have any more questions. They can pitch in after. But I was wondering, was there ever a moment for you in your career where you got to close your eyes and basically soak it in at the moment you were in and just realized, man, this is a good time, like, or you're having, just maybe the best moment of your career where you kind of could reflect and kind of thought, man, this is great,
Not really, the fact that I played college football and then I played a little bit of professional football. So I was an athlete, and then I got into the business. It was strictly a business for me. The only thing that I knew is that we were just working like dogs. I mean, we used to wrestle 350 days a year. So I never really reflected. When I was able to save enough money and bought our first house, for my family, that I guess, I realized what the business was allowing me to do. I was making a lot more money than I ever dreamt I was ever going to make. But other than that, to me, it was strictly business.
When's the last time you wrestled a match?
Probably before COVID.
Yeah.
So it's been a couple of years, and I've been asked to wrestle in different places, but I just tell them I'm not going to fly anywhere. I'm not ready to fly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I will not put on my boots again and get in the ring.
Right.
68. I can't. I can't do what I used to do. That So if I get in the ring, it's going to be very minimal. Maybe a tag match or 6-man tag, and the fans probably would like to see me get into the ring, and they'd just be happy to see me be able to get between the ropes and wave at them and do a little bit, because over the years I do minimal stuff in the ring, and the fans start chanting, "You still got it," and I would say, thinking to myself, I said, "No, I don't."
So you're not ready to be a flying burrito, huh?
No. They asked me to do the flying burrito, and I said no. I make them think I'm going for the flying burrito, but every time you land on the flying burrito, it's like a whiplash on your back, And like I said, I'm not a young guy anymore. My body just can't take it. My back is messed up for a while. It's not worth it. I gave a lot. My body gave a lot to the fans. I'm not. Enough is enough.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you watch the product at all today?
No, I don't.
No,
I can't even tell you what time it comes on. Once in a while, if I'm channel surfing and I see it, I might stop and watch to see. But it's a different business now.
Right.
It's a TV show. The guys, most of the guys that are in the WWE, at least, there's very few that know how to work like we. But the work that we did, the legends, they don't need it in the WWE anymore because it's a TV show. It's bam, 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 bam. You know, it's mostly an interview. You know, most of the show is an interview and a little bit of wrestling. It's a completely different. They don't have psychology, and it's not important to them anymore.
Mario, do you have any more questions for Mr. Santana?
Yeah, so I'm about halfway through your book, Tito, and I noticed early on in your career you faced a lot of racism and prejudice from certain promoters, certain bookers. I was wondering at any point where you just like forget it, I'm not going to do this, I'm out of here, I'm quitting.
No, because when I faced the racism was early in my career, and you know, I wasn't going to stop somebody who I thought was an idiot, keep me from succeeding in a career. You know, to me, wrestling was an opportunity for me, and you know, I put up with it. You know, and never went very far. You know, the you know, I don't even want to mention the guy's name. You know, you know who I'm talking about, but
yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Unfortunately, I don't know if he's still alive, but if he's still alive, I know that he's not doing very well health wise. You know,
yeah, he's still alive. Yeah,
yeah. I don't, you know, I don't ask for anybody to be harmed, or you know, I don't, you know, God bless him.
Right.
So, have you ever had to shoot on anybody in the ring, or at all?
No, I never had any problems in the ring. You know, I went in there to have the best match possible. Guys enjoyed working with me. The longer I was around, the more respect I had, and I could put in my 2 cents with the guys. You know, so as far as that goes, you know, there were some guys that had problems, but I never had, you know, thank God.
You never had anyone like potato you and you potato them back, like they hit you hard?
Oh yeah, that happened. You know, you potato me. You know, I just want to let you know that that hurt.
Yeah, you're gonna get it back.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and
a receipt.
Yeah, you would tell them that there's a receipt, and they would know it.
Yeah.
You know.
So we're gonna do our segment called Rapid Fire Smash. This is our last segment here. So this is just fun. You can answer however you want. You can take as long as you want for each answer. What's your favorite pizza?
I like a combination of everything other than anchovies.
No anchovies.
Thin and crispy. Well done.
Ah, nice.
Here's the one that I judge a character on. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yes, it does.
Oh man, we can no longer be friends.
I love pineapple on pizza.
I love pineapple. Yeah,
that's good.
Like I told Alex, right, man, I'm half Italian, so the pineapple and pizza don't go along with me.
Who's your favorite opponent?
I always say when I was in the business, there were so many great workers, but if I was to choose anybody, Mr. Wonderful would be the one that, you know, I'd want to have. He was the only guy that I did not have an angle with. All the heat was from the match. And in LA, we had a guy that jumped into the ring because I was selling and jumped on Paul's back and started punching Paul. And Paul just flipped him over and put the boots to the guy. I felt sorry for the guy, but there was so much heat that, you know, that was the only time that I ever saw a fan go in the ring because of the heat that you know, heat from what he was doing. It wasn't cheap heat. He would get it. He would just do stuff behind the referee, you know, where the referee didn't see it. And he was a talented guy, Paul.
Certainly was. All right. I don't write the question. Somebody else does. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Dogs. Yeah. Do you believe in UFOs?
Not really.
No.
Told
you these are going to be silly. So, Mario,
I got one right. Football or football?
Football.
Okay. Is there anyone that you didn't get to wrestle that you wish you had?
Not in my era. But I think it would have been nice to wrestle The Rock. He was over so big. I remember when The Rock came, I had already left the territory, but they brought The Rock in and he was there. He had a short stay and then they sent him home. And I don't know where I was going. I was in the airport in Baltimore and he talked to me and he says, Tito, they're sending me home. And I said, Rock, I said, they've got to have plans. He was the first guy that Vince McMahon, I heard that he gave, he was just a young guy and he gave him a $150,000 guarantee when he first came in. So I said, they have plans for you. I said, so, go do what they asked you to do. And he came back and they put him in a tag match with God, what was the team that he got teamed up with? The
Nation.
Yeah, and he learned so much, being in the tag team like that. And he came back talking to, in the third person, The Rock. I would have liked to have wrestled him because to me, he was over as much as anybody ever got over.
I always mean to ask this question, but then you asked it to Mario, and then it dawned on me I should be asking guys who were there. So, Sean or Marty?
Marty.
My man.
Oh, there you go. He's back.
He's a big Marty Jannetty fan. So,
my man. We're just waiting for him to get back to us so we can finish our interview with him. We do have.
I just did an appearance with Marty. He's a trip. He's a fun guy to be around.
He's a good guy. Just looking at his Facebook posts, it's fun.
Or he always loses his phone every single time.
You heard?
Yeah. Like I said, we interviewed him and he had to stop and he had to do something or leave, and he said he owed us another half hour, and he never. That was June, and we've been waiting to finish the interview. So,
hey Tito, you had the finishing move, the flying burrito, but I want to know, what do you like in your burritos to eat?
In my burritos, to be honest with you, I don't really care for burritos.
How about tacos?
I love tacos. Tacos is my favorite food.
Soft tacos or hard tacos?
I like them both. My mom used to make the soft tacos, and I haven't seen anybody make the same soft tacos because she used to cook, warm up the tortillas in lard.
Oh.
And they were so good.
That's where all the flavor comes from, right?
Yep.
La manteca.
The
fat, yep. If you could travel anywhere in the United States, why wouldn't it be Massachusetts?
Because it's too far to drive.
Hey, I've driven down your way. It's not too far.
and it's too cold in the winter.
It is very cold over here. Yes.
Isn't it pretty cold in New Jersey?
New Jersey doesn't get anywhere near as cold as it does in Massachusetts.
Really?
No, not even.
I remember in Massachusetts, in the 90s, in the late 70s and early 80s, there'd be some snowbanks that were way over your car, on the side of the road.
I was born during the blizzard of '81, so.
Yeah, they used to have some brutal snowfalls in Massachusetts, in Maine.
Interesting fact, that blizzard was in March because I was born in March. So,
hey, do you who do you used to travel with like the most? Like even after Rick Martel, after you guys broke up as a team, like who did you travel with? Anybody? Like,
well, years ago, I used to travel with Tony Gurria. You know, Tony Gurria and Mario Savoldi when I was here in New York. When I was in Atlanta territory, I used to travel with Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. When I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, I used to travel with Jay Youngblood and Ricky Steamboat. So usually back then we used to try to protect the business, and the baby faces travel with the baby faces.
Right. When did you stop doing commentary for the Spanish announce team, and why was it your table specifically that always got somebody put through it?
Well, I replaced Hugo Savinovich. You know, Hugo Savinovich was the commentator that did the commentating in Spanish with but I can't even remember his name, the main guy. And I only did it for about
Carlos Cabrera?
Carlos Cabrera, yeah. Well, I don't know. Then they brought Hugo back, and it was three of us. And from what I understand, whenever we used to travel, all the fans would come and want my autograph, not Carlos. So I was over more than Carlos was. And I don't know what the situation was with him and Hugo. And I understand that Carlos knocked me to the office quite a bit. So, you know, I was expendable. They kept, you know, he got along with Carlos better than he got along with me. So, but, you know, I wasn't going to do it much longer anyway, because, you know, I just didn't like being away from home anymore.
Mm-hmm. All right. So that actually concludes our show. We really want to thank you for being our guest. We really appreciate it.
Well, I want to thank you guys. I think you guys have some, you know your stuff, and you had some very interesting questions. And I mean, the time flew by, and I want to thank all the fans who are listening to this or are going to listen to this. No matter where I go, I still have unbelievable fan support, and I want to thank them so much for their continued support.
Thank you. I would like to think that, you know, us people that like to interview people in your era, you know, would try to keep you guys, you know, relevant and alive, and people to know about your careers, because, you know, without other people to do these interviews, I think that, you know, a lot of these guys will be forgotten, and we don't want to, you know, greats like you to be forgotten, you know.
And not only that, but I also feel that we want to get it from the horse's mouth, because a lot of times, especially Vince, will change history to fit his narrative, and sometimes you don't get the full story.
Yep. Most of the time you won't.
So again, appreciate Tito Santana coming on. Thank you so much. So you've been a blessing.
Thank you. Arriba!
Arriba.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, Mario.
Thank you, Tito. See ya.
Okay.